Very pleasant. Good morning, everybody. Great to be with you. A Degenerate Friday edition of the morning briefing. And if you are a degenerate, you certainly are very close to being euphoric today, especially after all the action you had yesterday. And then you dive right back into it today. It's amazing, right? We're going back to the track. Unbelievable. My mother used to give me that look. You're going to the track? How come all women say that? Well, when they use the word track as in racetrack, they have to say it with that face. You're going to the track, but you're right back into it, right? Are you going back again? Are you kidding me? And that's what we're doing. We're diving right back into March Madness again today. 16 more games on tap. And there are a lot of stories, always great storylines. It is true, Lubie. One of the cliches in sports that actually has merit is that the tournament always delivers. It really does. Whether you're a basketball fan or not, you have to love the stories that this guy from Oakland, who has been coaching 40 years, Greg Kempe, 40 years in college basketball, all at Oakland, which is not in California, but actually like Auburn Hills, Michigan. And they win their conference tournament. I was watching a little bit of them. I feel terrible today because I was going to mention in my wise guy picks, which we buried everybody with Drake. We told everybody that all of our wise guy friends loved Drake. They were favored, even though they were a lower seed in their ball game, and they ended up losing outright. So that was a bust. We have New Mexico tonight is the hot play of virtually everybody. Every handicapper that we talk to loves Richie Pitino in New Mexico in their ball game tonight and even likes them to possibly make a little bit of a run. What would be considered a little bit of a run? Sweet 16, that's 2 games, Lubie. Is that a big deal? That you make the Sweet 16, everybody goes crazy. Yeah, we're in the Sweet 16. You won 2 fucking ball games. Usually over teams that, especially in the first round, for some of these teams that are the powerhouses and the heavyweights in the tournament, what's the big deal? You win 2 games over scrub teams that a lot of people thought, well, who the fuck are they? But in general, I mean, if one of these smaller schools or underdogs or lower seeds ends up in the Sweet 16, I guess it is. It constitutes what would be a big deal. Now, for Oakland, that's their first ever. They had one play-in game victory in their history. 40 years this guy Kempe has been coaching there and had one play-in game victory in their history and no regular tournament inside the 64 round of 64 wins ever. This was their first ever. And who do they beat? Calipari and Kentucky. But we'll get into all of that. I wanted to start actually with this Otani story. And then we'll get into some more NCAA stuff because we had a very interesting conversation with a friend of ours yesterday. We would consider him to be a very reliable source on the seedy underground of gambling. But would you agree that this is a guy, a gentleman that if he's telling us these stories, they aren't necessarily fabricated. They probably have some fundamental foundation in truth. Is that a fair statement, Libby? Talking about our unidentified inside source on the Otani story.
My thought, yes. That's what I'm thinking.
It could be a guy just saying, hey, yeah, I know what this is all about. I don't know. But in this particular case, we happen to trust our source enough to think that there's some merit to what he's saying. And he's saying that this Otani story, what we're getting so far, Luby, is total bullshit. That it was Otani, it was Bodzini all along. That Otani is not that stupid that he would allow his interpreter to fleece $4.5 million out of his bank account with no knowledge of it whatsoever. You would think, if anything, Luby, that Otani's bank accounts would be pretty well protected. He has what? A battery of attorneys, I'm sure, working with him. All kinds of people. He must have some kind of management team. He's not. If he's that financially ignorant, Luby, can you really trust a guy with $700 million? Or would you not want to have somebody overseeing what was going on with this money? Where it was coming from? Was it coming in properly? Was it being distributed the right way? Was anybody having access to it? You would have to think that there was some level of protection there for Otani's money. Would you believe that to be true?
They're, I don't know if this is where it started, but they're admitting now that Otani knew all along, which is the one thing, because we were at the trivia yesterday at Landlubbers, and Andy Mann, who was the one joking about it being real with the interpreter, Pot was there, and Ken, and we're talking, and Ken, he believes it only in the sense that in his mind, the deal that Otani signed, if you were a real degenerate, who does the Bonilla thing? Like, degenerates want their money now.
Yes.
So he thought that was a little weird. Like, if he really was a degenerate, even if he has all this money from endorsements, you want all your money so that you could have it there, which is a valid point. I mean, being around all of you guys for
to be considered, no doubt.
Yes, that's very true. But they also were like, Otani supposedly knew, and Otani was not bankrolling it, but helping out. Like those are the details that are out now, that Otani was aware of it.
Does this not
I don't
become
know.
a little bit of a convenient story with
Yes,
enough gray areas to make you think, what the fuck are you trying to tell us?
yes, yes. That's my thing.
That this
Is
guy who was the best friend of Otani at this point, was with him all the time, had been an interpreter before for other players, both on the Japanese baseball side, where he was an interpreter for Americans who didn't speak Japanese, who were playing in Japan. And he also was an interpreter for other players, Japanese players, that were here in America before he connected with Otani when he was with the then Los Angeles Angels. Guy's been with him for many, many years. He's by his side almost constantly. They became very good friends. And now the narrative is that Otani was aware that this guy was $4.5 million in debt to this bookie who was being investigated by either the authorities in California or the Federal Bureau of Investigation. A guy named, I think you pronounce his name Bauer.
I
It's
can.
Bowyer.
Okay.
But we came in contact with a gentleman who actually knows this guy and then knows people who associate with him. And you could see a different story playing out there, which is what was laid out to us by our inside source, saying that, well, what happened? So Bauer finds out that he's under investigation. He knows he's going to get popped. He's this major bookmaker that's handling millions of dollars in bets in California where there's no legal sports wagering. And his end of the sports wagering business wouldn't have been legal anyway, right? He's not a casino. He's a bookie.
No,
All
he's
right.
illegal.
He's
Yeah,
handling
even
massive bets and has people. I mean, think about this. He has to collect this 4.5 million off what he thinks is Shohei Otani.
yes.
So anyway, what would be the first thing you would do if you got busted, Lubie? Before they even turned the lights on and said, "Would you like a seat, Mister Lubitz?" You'd be saying, "It was Shohei. I got him." Because
Exactly.
what do the feds want? They want big names. They want publicity. They want to generate this thing as a story that encompasses a major scandal and maybe even brings down Major League Baseball. That's what they're looking to do. That happens to be the truth. They don't care about the one guy. Sure, they could bust this guy, but if they can somehow implicate Shohei Otani in a gambling scandal, that's what the FBI's goal is. That's what they're looking to do in the prosecution office there with the federal government whenever they're involved. Unfortunately, I have a little bit of firsthand experience with that. They're just looking to get the biggest story as well as nail as many people as possible so they can have all these convictions on their record and then turn around and run for Congress.
Usually run for office. Yes, running for
That's the
office.
name of the game. Yeah, look what I did. I cleaned up crime in California. I got rid of all of these bookies and I busted Shohei Otani. They're loving every second of that. So
Yes.
if you're the guy that just got busted, I mean, it's always the case where the first guy in usually gets the least amount of punishment dealt to him
Yes.
because he's going to rat out everybody else. I want names, I want numbers, I want figures. And if you can show them, hey, wait a minute, I got Shohei Otani here. He just sent me $4.5 million. That's a good way to lessen the blow of what's going to happen to you eventually. So that makes some sense that he might have said, hey, listen, I got something for you guys, and here it is. Now, Major League Baseball and the Dodgers, they have to scramble because they're thinking, geez, we can't have Otani implicated in a betting scandal
Oh
that he's
no, no.
placing illegal bets to the tune of $4.5 million. What does that do to tarnish the name of the game
Yes,
and
and
the integrity of the game?
he's
Everything.
like the biggest star in the game right now, and he's in the second biggest market.
There's a sign on every clubhouse wall that says betting is strictly prohibited. Now, it says betting on baseball, but I don't know if it specifies anything else. They quickly clarified that none of these bets were on baseball. Holy Pete Rose, what are we talking about here? It's only a matter of time before Pete becomes the commissioner of Major League Baseball.
Yeah. Yes.
Or the NFL or any of these sporting entities because, let's face it, they're all in bed with the very people that they despise, that they thought was the biggest threat to their existence, and they're now partners with these people. But they weren't with this Boyer guy, and so this information becomes particularly explosive. But can you believe that this guy was pilfering money from Otani's account without his knowledge and was in debt to some bookie for $4.5 million? That this what could they be paying this guy to be an interpreter for Otani? Few
Now,
100,000? I mean, would that not be a fairly gigantic? If you're an interpreter at the United Nations and you are, taking English and interpreting it and translating it into Lebanese for somebody who's sitting there on a pair of headphones, are you making that kind of money?
no, I think
This
you
is
get
a cush job.
you do well, but I don't know if you're making that. But look, the story that makes first of all, the story that makes the most sense is that it was Ohtani. But let's say it wasn't Ohtani. The only way to me makes any sense is if he knew, and then that's what it is. Is the guy, whatever money he's taking from this contract, is still making millions, if not hundreds of millions, because
Yes.
sponsorship wise, worldwide, his dollars must be ridiculous. So he has the money to bail the dude out. If they're really more than just interpreter client, if they're just friends, they're probably really good friends. They've been around each other forever. That the guy must know, okay, Ohtani will bail me out, and Ohtani supposedly did bail him out. That makes sense. It's just they told a lot of weird stories. They didn't just tell that right. They told first Ohtani did no. Then
Many
Ohtani
gray areas. Yes.
It's weird.
Sounds like they're making it up as they go along. The story that we got was simply this, and it was straight up that it was Ohtani all along. It was Bartini all along. That it may have involved as much as $25 million in bets, and it was all exclusively on soccer games.
Yes.
So we'll watch and see if those details ever surface and if the story turns out that way. But that was a story that we got. And I would imagine, hey, let's hope they don't just let this thing go and slide, because it looks like Lee Harvey Oswald time here with the interpreter, right? I'm a patsy.
Yep.
Right? The guy's 5 miles away from the scene. He somehow took a sniper rifle and happened to hit John F. Kennedy right in the back of the head with a bullet that went through 3 other people from a mile away. And then ran into a movie theater and sat there and waited to get caught. Unbelievable. Patsy, my friend. All right, so that story, the plot thickened, and we got a little what we thought was inside information on that, and well, we can't guarantee that that is valid and factual, but at the same time, when you listen to the cockamamie bullshit that's coming out of the sources that are giving you the story,
yep,
it certainly doesn't all make perfect sense. Ohtani just walked in one day and said, "Fuck, man, I'll cover your $4.5 million."
Exactly. You give me my best.
I don't think so.
And I can be rich as fuck. I'm still like, dude.
I think he would have been more inclined to be using the phrasing that we were using yesterday here on the show. What was that? Wanakana Kuso or something?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, my God, you're fucked. All right. Very thrilling opening round of the tournament. You had to love it. Oakland over Kentucky. What about John Calipari, man? Did you see his face after the game yesterday? That was amazing.
I mean, look, and they said it at the end of the game, and it's because I was thinking, like, when have they done anything in the tournament the last 5 years? He's won one, or they've won one tournament game, one. So that means they didn't get out of the round 32 in over 4 years.
Yes.
And they're always a 6 or higher. Like, they're never like a 14 or a 12 or something.
Had kind of an up and down season a little bit, mostly up for Kentucky. And there were spurts there where you thought Kentucky even had national championship potential.
Yeah, they were a 3 seed. I mean, that's the team that should have a shot at a title.
They got knocked out 2 years ago by St. Peter's. They happened to be the springboard for Cinderella stories. St. Peter's a couple of years ago, and they actually went to, the Elite Eight? St. Peter's. That was a great story. And I don't know if Oakland can do the same thing. Oakland ends up playing NC State in the next round, which is kind of interesting.
I told you.
That guy
Burns. Always teams that people are like, they don't belong. They shouldn't be in. And they always win at least 2. Like Michigan State should have had no shot. They're going to win 2 games. NC State was 17-14. They should not be in the tournament. They are going to win like 2 games. There's always teams that like don't belong that find a way to get hot.
It's a Nadawakuso. That's what we're looking for. A Nadawakuso. You're fucked. Unbelievable. Duquesne won its first tournament game, I believe, since 1969. We haven't had that feeling here since 1969. That was great. NC State over Texas Tech. That was a good one. We love the fat guy in sports. This guy Burns is fun to watch. It's one of those guys that shows up at the park and holds the court all night long, even though he really doesn't look like a basketball player. It looks like he should have been involved in football or some other sport. Drake losing. We're sorry about that, people. Samford did cover the spread, although they did not win the game outright against Kansas.
I didn't watch. Supposedly there was a really bad call at the end. That's really the only reason Kansas won.
Okay, and we're looking at New Mexico tonight. That's our big pick of the day. New Mexico and Richie Pitino to make amends for the fact that his father got screwed. And that St. John's didn't make it into the tournament. And now if you're Seton Hall, you're probably screaming also, saying, hey, wait a minute, man. What about us? So all of these teams, you hit it on the head yesterday, Lubie. You hit it right on the head. The teams that everybody says don't belong in the tournament always end up winning in the first round. Those are the teams that generate your Cinderella stories. How much basketball did you end up watching all day, Louis?
Oh
Did you
yeah.
need to gargle with Visine at the end of the day? I didn't catch all of it, and I was watching, including today. You have the Sabalenka Badosa match, which that's still a bizarre story, and we don't know all of the details, but they do tweak your curiosity, don't they? That Arina Sabalenka, a very attractive and hot tennis player in terms of her play on the court. She is number 2 in the world, won the Australian Open this year. That's her second Grand Slam. She got knocked down in the quarterfinals at Indian Wells, but has been effective all season long, essentially. And her boyfriend, who was a hockey player, played with the Penguins briefly for 3 years and was a big star in Russian hockey. He supposedly committed suicide on Monday night. Well, we don't know if Arina Sabalenka was with him at the time or what was. Anyway, staying with him, you would imagine they were staying in the same hotel, boyfriend and girlfriend. And we don't know what the status of their relationship was, if it had gone awry and maybe they were about to. We don't know what provoked this man to commit suicide. No details whatsoever. And we haven't heard from Sabalenka, but she's supposedly going to play today against Paula Badosa in the Miami Open. They postponed her match by 1 day to give her another day to try and figure out what she wanted to do, and supposedly going to play today. So that'll be interesting to see how all of that is handled. Is it unfair that this came up, Louis? People were just screaming at the people that were covering the event, the reporters there, because they were asking other players about to react to the Sabalenka story when they found out that her boyfriend had died and ultimately had committed suicide. And was that unfair? I mean, I read one of the transactions or the transcript of one of the question and answer sessions with Caroline Wozniak. It didn't seem like the press was stepping out of bounds on this. I don't know. Is it unfair to ask other players about either how they would feel or how they do feel about Sabalenka continuing in the tournament?
Other players?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, you can ask them. I don't know what the hell they're supposed to say. It's a lose-lose. If you say she should be there, then I guess you're being insensitive to the loss. If you're saying she shouldn't be there, then you're taking her choices away from her, and she's a grown woman. She can make her own freaking choices. So
people grieve in different ways. That's the thing you'll always hear.
Look, we've talked about it. We've had losses since we've been doing shows, and we maybe took a day or two. Like to me, it takes your mind. Like when you're doing something that, when you're doing any job, but a job that is cathartic, that's what this is. It's cathartic from either sports or life, and that's what that is for a lot of these people. This is all they know. Sport. To get to that,
my dad passed away, and he would have wanted me to go to work the next day.
We just did. It's what we do.
Yeah.
Like in sports, you don't get to that place without it being your life. So if something's your life, people are like, well, take a break from it. No, but it's my life. Like you don't take a break from your life. Like if something's all you know, it's all you know. Like there's no way around it.
Be interesting to see. I think it'll be handled with respect. I really do. Although in tennis, on the tennis circuit, there's always that one guy from like Britain or something that has to ask the obnoxious question at the press conference. Usually jumps up right away and says, "Hey, Arina, how can you play when your boyfriend just died?" At which point in time, you would hope he would be escorted out of the room there, and that they would allow Sabalenka, who probably would be driven to tears at that point. Very sensitive woman. We've seen her cry at press conferences before. Imagine this one. The weight of this, but we don't know what she thinks about all of this, and it is interesting because you would have thought the logical move or a natural move would have been to say, "Hey, listen, I can't play this week. I'll come back in a week or two or whatever." But going to give it a go today against, ironically, her best friend in life besides her boyfriend, Paula Badosa, the hot Spanish tennis player who's making her return and got through the first round. Sabalenka had a bye in the first round, but that's coming up later on today. All right, March Madness, you guys enjoy it? We gave you New Mexico so far. What, we're 1-1 with games we gave out here on the show. I feel badly, Lubie. I almost mentioned Oakland as a team to watch.
Good for you.
I started to do it, and then I thought, boy, I'll really look stupid when they get blown out by Kentucky.
I didn't think Oakland was beating Kentucky.
They got this kid Townsend. Never mind the guy that had the 10 threes. Jack Golke had 10 threes in the ballgame, 10 for 20. He shot all 3-pointers, 10 for 20, and became one of a handful of guys that have made 10 3-pointers in an NCAA tournament game. The record is 11. 20 jacks from 3-point range. I mean, you talk about no conscience. This kid had no conscience yesterday. But the coach Kempe said that our only chance to win was going to be if this guy hoisted up a bunch of threes. But they have a guy Townsend on their team who's very good also, very talented player. He had 17 in the game last night. I started yesterday on the show to say, hey, you might take a look at Oakland and the points against Kentucky. In my wildest imagination, I didn't have the balls to say, hey, take them outright. So why would you listen to me? New Mexico tonight. All right, Lubie, we have to run. It's been a pleasure being with you here on NoFilter.net, Caffeine TV. For Mike Lubitz, Mr. March Madness. I'm Jeff DeForest. Thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you Monday. Have a great weekend, everybody. Make a lot of money on the tournament games, and we'll be able to be a sounding board for you when we return on Monday with the next edition of the Morning Briefing.